Well,
Fun
we have
time.
an exciting conversation or subject matter to talk about. So, are you ready to start the show?
Sure thing.
Hey, everyone, and welcome to or welcome back to One Man and One Woman, the podcast. I am one half of your co hosts, Tara Michelle.
And I am J. Flan.
So, today we're going to be talking about a subject that has been talked about over the last few days. It's coming from the NFL Draft 2025, and that is Shaddeur Sanders. Have you been following this?
Yes, I'm an NFL fan. I'm very aware.
Okay. So I do want to start this off by saying in today's show, you're going to get the male perspective, one man, one woman, and he has the football IQ. He is the football fan and the person with all the knowledge and the facts of what he feels has happened here and what he has known to have happened across the how many of a millennia they've been playing football. I know it's not millennia, chill out. And then for my side, as a woman who does not follow football at all, I am going to be coming to you with my opinions and my emotions, and as a mother, as a Black woman, how I felt. And a lot of this, I'm going to be honest, is from watching pundits, from watching podcasts of other football players, of Black men. I haven't really listened to any women of Black men talking about how they perceive this and what this was. And in my experience in following people, racism was a huge part of this. People felt like Dion even talked about this, the fact that you have Deion Sanders, his father, who has, Deion has a mouth, he has an ego, he always has. He raised these sons who are now in the NFL, two of them. Um, and he raised them to be a certain way, to hold their heads high, to believe in themselves and speak on themselves. And it seems to a lot of people, not to everybody, and again, it's just emotion based, opinion based, that him being them being Black has something to do with that. That there are a lot of people who do not like to see Black excellence. They don't want to celebrate it. They don't want to hear about it. And some of these anonymous people and the really mean things that they said, the crazy part to me is even if they did think these things in these interviews, I just feel like that's not something that you say. And if it is something that you want to say, don't anonymously do it. You come out and you say it with your face on the screen, with your name at the bottom, and you stand 10 toes down behind that. But I think it was handled very poorly by the NFL. I do think that their hatred for and jealousy of Deion Sanders played a part in this. And I absolutely do think that somewhere along the lines, they took joy in trying to humble, as they say, I'm doing air quotes, humble a young Black man and hurt his Black father because apparently it's not okay to celebrate Black excellence and think highly of yourself when you are melanated. Just my opinion.
And so, yeah, I'll give my opinion. I think Black people are handling this poorly. I think we are twisting and contorting something and reacting off of emotion and not looking at the situation for what it is. I think all these young men who changed the trajectory of their entire families this past week have been taught to think highly of themselves, have been taught to have confidence, have been taught and also been taught how to represent themselves. They don't get here, they don't get to that point without that. I think a lot of them have strong Black dads that are in their households and that got them to where they are. And so to me, to just try to classify this as some racist action really almost like spits in the face of the kids who went out and did it and took this as seriously as they were supposed to take it, who saw this as the opportunity that it was and went out to seize it. This in essence, the draft in essence is a job interview. And Shaddeur Sanders' draft stock started to crash, started to plummet after the combine with these interviews. And these interviews get leaked every year. People are talking about questions that were asked and people's reactions to these interviews. every year. None of this is new or different. And if we want to talk about Dion, let's talk about, you know, why the NFL or why certain teams and owners may have an issue with him. You know, he tells the story of his draft experience going into the Giants interview, and the Giants factor heavily in what happened to his son. Basically, being presented with a test, refusing to take the test, and then asking them what pick they had. They said we somewhere around 10. I won't be around by then, and walked out. He bet on himself. He bet on his talent. He bet. He was so confident in himself that he bet on himself, and he won. He had the talent that was undeniable, you know. So regardless of his antics, regardless of the media circus that they knew was going to come with it, regardless of all of that, he still got drafted and got drafted, in the position that people expected him to go. Now, fast forward a couple years later, we had Jerry Rice playing in the Super Bowl with a separated shoulder. How did he separate his shoulder? He got upset with his teammates for being out partying the week of the Super Bowl. Coaches and staff, pretty much said, "Hey, you guys work this out." Dion was one of those guys. Dion and Jerry Rice in a room, words were exchanged. Jerry Rice's shoulders separated. The next year, fresh off of the Super Bowl, the 49ers don't even offer him a contract. This is how he ends up in Dallas. So talent isn't everything. You can be super talented and have all the right to be confident in your talent. But if you can't come in and fit in the organization, or if you can't control your emotions or handle your behavior, or if you put yourself above the team, or you demonstrate behavior that makes people feel like you put yourself above the team, these are the kind of things that are going to happen. And so we have 20 years later, we have Shaddeur Sanders interviewing with the Giants. Brian, I want to say the head coach of the Giants, has come out and said what happened that made them change their minds on him. I think they were going over, play stuff with him and talking about installing the package. They didn't feel like he was, he handled the preparedness well enough, and the coach called him out on it, and he didn't like the way he got called out. And that was their red flag. And coaches talk. They could have said, "Hey, this is what we just experienced, with so and so. What was your experience? Oh, that happened, and then you fall." He still got drafted. He didn't get drafted in the position that we wanted or he wanted. But sometimes you bet on yourself and it don't pan out.
What did he get drafted as?
I'm sorry.
What was he drafted as? What position?
Who are we talking about?
Shaddeur.
Quarterback.
Okay. Okay. So I wrote down a couple of questions while you were speaking. And one of them is because I know earlier and when you were talking, you said um, these boys prepared themselves and they took this seriously. Do you think Shaddeur hasn't taken this seriously? He hasn't worked hard. He hasn't focused
I
compared to those other kids that you keep bringing up, or young men, excuse me.
it, on the field, football wise, I think he did everything that everybody else did. But this is not just about and it's never been. It has never been purely about how talented you are. There have always been people who were super talented, but maybe teams didn't need that position that year. Or you're super talented, but there's too many of you in that position, so you don't get drafted in the range that you want to get drafted. Or you're super talented, but you come with baggage. You come with something. We're gonna have to deal with something having you in the organization. They don't have to have you. This is you're asking to be selected. You have to be wanted by these teams. If they don't want you, they don't have to pick you.
Absolutely. So here's my other question. Because I know you mentioned you said they have dads that taught them to be here. Again, my opinion about this has nothing to do with the other people in here. This is 100% only about Shadur and about his dad, Dion. And the way that, in my opinion, these people have acted for years about Dion, the way that they just treated him being a coach, and, the way they got pissed about the HBCU, like there's just been so much racism behind the way they've been treating him. And it feels just dark, and it feels vengeful, and it feels filled with a lot of hatred. I'm not taking away anything that you said regarding the fact that absolutely, from what I've heard, they talk to all kind of people when they do these interviews. They're going back and talking to your first grade teacher, third grade teacher, your first girlfriend when you were 4.5. Like, it's a really big deal, and I get that. But the way that this feels, despite how, I would love to see the statistics of how many people that were non-melanated who said things and were, bold. And Baker's Mayfield had, issues, but he was just a young kid trying to find himself. The media does this. The media makes what black people do out to be just the worst kind. Our boys at 12 are grown men, where, Ryan Lochte can be in another country at 27 and he's a kid when he goes out and it just embarrasses the United States. There's a difference here. So I think with Shaddeur, he was hated on, he was mistreated, and they blew up all of this stuff. I can't imagine anybody would have been saying he's going to be a top 5 pick or he's going to definitely go in the first round, all those pundits, all those people, all those players, and he was this horrible. He just couldn't do nothing right. Doesn't take anything seriously because he also wanted to be a rapper. Now he's going to be unmanageable because of what his dad used to do. He's going to do the same thing. Well, you better hope. You better hope if we haven't seen we haven't seen his greatness yet, and then he actually comes out and does what his dad did. But for me, just taking into account how this all went down, and again, what pundits I cannot name, podcasts I can't name, but I know that one, I think it's called The Pivot or something like that, the one. But a lot of these men who played this game were like, this was wrong, and you can't tell me this wasn't racist, and this was a shame. Stephen A. Smith and even Donald Trump all agreed that it was really egregious the way that he was treated. And seeing as how all of these, we don't just look at the NFL as a whole. 32 teams, not one black owner. It's just racist all around. It always has been. I'm still trying to get over what they did to Colin Kaepernick. But to stay here on the Shaddeur situation, as a black woman who has sons, my oldest son played football, I would be devastated if people came in and made my son out to be the most horrible person. And then if people who look like us, came out and was like, no, it doesn't feel like it was racism. It's all of these facts. I just want us to look at it as a whole. Yes, there's a high probability that because Dion is the way he is and because Shaddeur is the way he is, somebody said these boys are getting out of hand. They doing way too much. I'm tired of seeing his dad be successful. We had to deal with him in the 80s and the 90s, and now we got to deal with his sons too. Absolutely not. And then there's also all the facts of you absolutely are auditioning, you absolutely are interviewing. They absolutely can decide that they hate you, even though 200 white men before you did the exact same thing. And now they want to decide to start saying, okay, that's a bad thing. We got to start downing it. And you could just be caught in the middle of some mess. But I think all of it can be true. I know the statistical stuff and the facts you just gave are true, but I also think it can also be true that, and this came from Dion. Dion said they tired of me, they tired of my excellence. I didn't, my lineage is carrying it on, and enough is enough for them. I have to take Dion's word for it because he's lived it, he's played it. That's the reason he will come in and say, "My son will not deal with these teams. My son will not deal with these owners," because he lived that life. I gotta trust him. And I got to trust in what I saw and what I felt on an opinionated side and an emotional side, because as a woman, that's what I do. And then we have you here to be the logical male who's going to come in and say, yo, this ain't the first time it's happened. Probably won't be the last. Maybe Shaddeur rubs some people the wrong way. But I just haven't heard anything come from you that will say to me, yeah, this dude is you taking a chance on this dude would be the worst idea. Let's drop him to 144 for the pick. Nothing has been that egregious, and I don't think that it would have been that way had he and his dad been white. Just my opinion.
Yeah, and I understand why it feels that way, but this is this is not the time for us to be distracted by emotion. There's more important stuff going on, and this, like I said, anytime the selectors are white and the people being selected are black, it's going to read wrong. Anything that goes wrong is going
Yeah.
to look egregious and horrible. I think there's a far greater chance that the social media personality that we see from Shaddeur Sanders was the same personality that went into those interview rooms. And like, and we get footage from these interview rooms. I spent a lot of times last year forwarding around the video of, I think it was Keon Coleman's interview, because it was fun. He became in that moment a social media darling. He became somebody that, you know, wherever the Bills had him on their list, they know, oh, if we bring him in, we got fan support because the fans love this kid. These are all factors that go into selecting a player. We have to remember, these people are making a decision to invest millions of dollars in these young men, millions of dollars, and they want to be careful about how they invest that money. And when you and I, again, like it seems good and seems positive to see Dion saying I'm gonna be this involved and blah blah blah. But if you reverse it and you put yourself in the position of a GM, and let's not forget that there are no black owners, that there's 7 black GMs and two black presidents. 6 of those 7 black GMs passed on him. Mike Tomlin has come out and given his reason as a black coach that the Steelers passed on him. But again, it's just I don't this is not the one. This is not the one. He got drafted. We don't like the position that he got drafted in. But again, his social media presence and what he's saying and the stuff that Dion was saying, they don't conflict with the reports that we're getting about the interview. When you see him and
I,
Cam Ward standing next to each other, and he's like, "Hey man, we should make a song," and Cam Ward is saying, "All I do is play football." We know, we know, Cam Ward was probably trained to say that. For all I know, as soon as they turned the cameras off, Cam Ward said, "Hey man, yeah, let's get that mixtape popping." But he knew, I'm auditioning for a position. I'm auditioning for a role right now. So I can't say that in front of these cameras. You can do these things when you're him. When you're that dude, you can do that. And then Dion proved that. He was that dude. He was a generational talent. Couldn't pass up on him. It didn't matter with the red flags on. Throughout his career, those red flags started to pile up and teams started passing on him left and right. He went from the Falcons to the 49ers to the Cowboys to the Commanders or the Redskins at the time to the Ravens. I don't even know where he finished his career. But we're talking about a player that nobody's debating was the greatest cornerback that ever played. But he went through 5, 6 different teams. Teams didn't.
was
Teams
that
weren't
for
willing to
money
keep him. They
or is
they
behavior
pay.
problem?
They pay. They pay. If you that if they pay for you, if they want you, they pay. We guys get paid all the time. They'll move some money around. They'll figure something out. A teammate will take a pay cut. It's happened.
But what I'm saying is when he bounced around all those teams, was it because he was looking for more money or was it because they booted him off because of behavior issues?
I think I just described the Super Bowl year in San Francisco, where he goes to San Fran, helps them win a Super Bowl, is in a fight with Jerry Rice before the game. Before the game, separates his shoulder. Next year, he doesn't even get offered a contract. There was no negotiation about how much money do you want and how much money do we have available. They decided you aren't worth the headache. And so
So,
if you're a GM and you're looking at this situation and you're saying, okay, I'm gonna bring this kid in. I know if I'm not bringing him in to be a starter, I know there's already going to be pressure to have him start if we have any issues with our quarterback. Now I also know that whatever happens, I'm gonna have Dion coming, and Dion's gonna bring all the media and try to, control what we do here. I'm gonna get pressure from the fans to we should hire Dion as a coach. We've had this whole strategy in place. We got a coach, we got a plan, and now if we take on this kid, we take on the possibility of being under super pressure to change our plan because that's what everybody thinks we should do because it's Dion. Organizations may not have wanted to deal with that, and you know this coming into the draft, so you portray yourself as a person that they want, not as a person that they don't, and then get upset when they don't select you.
so here's my thing. I feel like you're saying, and tell me if I'm wrong, these kids can't be themselves. They got to shuck and jive and put on the show for the mans. And it's just like you said, the slave block. We gonna weigh you We're gonna do all of this stuff, and we gonna pick you based on your. It's really disgusting when you do that. When you think about that, we got to come on and do a dance and a show for money at the hands of these rich white men. Who, if as long as we making money for them, we fine. The moment we not, we ain't ish. It's really disgusting. So, in what you were just saying, I wrote down it feels to me like a lot, and I know this is not statistically 100%, but it feels to me in everything that we do in this country where media is involved that they only want to be focused and careful when it's us. Now we got to really examine and see what's going on, and they pick and choose depending on the sport. Because, like that John Moran or whatever his name is, that child is not worth any of the headache. He just keeps doing stupid stuff. But I feel like you saying, okay, we are afraid that or we do not want to have to deal with his dad, so we're gonna pass on him. um when he was in a video and he was standing next to somebody else and they were trained to say this and that because he says I like to be out, I like rapping and making music and I like football. We can't deny that he tries his best at football, but we're gonna say because he also likes music, nope, gonna pass on him. And the fans are gonna tell us put him in, put him in, put him in, and we don't want to hear that, so nope. It again, he doesn't have a bunch of baby mamas. He doesn't have an arrest record. I just feel like the way that they came at him, this extra scrutiny, because he thinks highly of himself, is so wildly disrespectful. And to say, oh, well, his interviews were so bad. Well, you know what I would have respected? If you knew so long ago that this kid's vibe was off and you didn't like it, and it's because again, he's being blamed for his dad. That's not fair. But if you knew a long time ago that you thought he was just so terrible, that's when you start saying stuff. Do not wait and drop him to 144 when everybody had him at a top five pick, and if not that, a guaranteed first round, because now you look like you up to some stank ish. People like me, and again, every black man I've seen on every podcast has said the same thing. Stephen A. Smith, and then that person in the White Office, even in the White House, White Office, the White House. So there's a lot of people who thought that this was absolutely incorrect. And they have access to the same thing you're telling us. They're hearing the same thing about meetings and interviews not going right. And all of them are still going, this ain't that. So something weird is going on here with this kid. And I think it is absolutely part of what you just said. They don't like his daddy. They don't want to deal with his daddy. So, and that's not fair. And again, I think they don't like his dad. Yeah, he may have had a bad attitude, but he also tells the truth out here in these interviews. These are some bad people. These are some bad organizations. I don't want that for my son. They already had a chance to mess with me and do these things. I don't want that for my son. And because we're on the outside looking in and we don't know exactly what happened, there's this, oh, he got mad because his teammates were out drinking and stuff. But what would he say to him? How he talked to him? What was it's too much we don't know. But I still think this baby shouldn't have that. None of this stuff should be brought up when talking about him. How old is he? Like 5? He was nowhere near around when this stuff was going on. So either way, no matter what reason we put, I think he was mistreated and mishandled. And I fail to understand why other black current players and former players are saying the same thing. If this is just run of the mill, a regular audition, a regular interview, and when, it's my last question for you regarding this part. When do they release these snippets of the video? When are we gonna get to see this so-called horrible, egregious interview that he did?
We may never see it, and that's not the point. Um, this is not. It's not a meritocracy. This is not some sort of you get in because of how good you are. This is not like the driving exam where if you pass the test, you get a license. Um, you can be as skilled as you want to be, and there are several examples of this. Like you said, Johnny Manziel was skilled. Was skilled.
Was he?
He was. You can't do. He definitely had the skill. He did not. It was his off the field stuff that bled onto the field. You don't know how to prepare. You don't know how to prepare. You're not disciplined. You're dealing with substances. You party too much. Then that affected his on the field play, and he absolutely is a memory in the NFL. That was a blip.
Yeah.
Caleb
How
Williams.
long did he play?
I don't know for sure. Caleb Williams had several red flags. We talked about that. He was a controversial pick. We're acting like that didn't happen. Caleb Williams was a very controversial pick, but he was so talented. People just felt like he was this generational talent, this can't miss prospect, and nobody wanted to be the team that missed out on that. It doesn't appear to feel like I'm it doesn't appear that teams felt this way about Shaddeur, and maybe Dion got some bad information. You know, maybe he had people telling him stuff, and then also I want to say it's not everybody agrees with this. I sent you the clip from Bomani Jones, a very well respected sports analyst, black man, and he was the one that said the whole trying to say that this is the NFL trying to humble an outspoken black man was kind of a shot at outspoken black men. Like what is he spoke out against other than his greatness? Like this is not a Colin Kaepernick situation where they don't like him because he's out here pushing for some black agenda or for something that we want or out here being an activist. They didn't like him because they felt like he was too high on himself. And that's not a complaint that you do not get around other players. There's a difference between confidence and cocky. And you can be cocky when you are that dude. His father is an under 100% example of that. He could be that cocky, and people were going to deal with it because you needed him more than he needed you. We talk about stuff that our parents used to say that we should bring back. That's one. My mother used to say that to me every time I mouthed off at her. She'd say, boy, you gonna need me long before I ever need you. I could probably flip that now, but you if you're gonna play the leverage game, you gotta make sure you got the leverage. And they didn't have the leverage. They thought they had the leverage, but they didn't.
You take that back for your mama listening to this episode. Um, well, I mean, and Bomani Jones or whatever his name is, I don't know who he is, and I saw that when you sent me that clip, but that's one dude against a bunch of people again who think differently. I think what we have to understand here is everybody has their own opinion. Everybody wants to apply, some people want to apply logic and statistics and say this, that, and the third. Other people are looking at it on a more personal level because we're tired of this stuff and we're tired of giving them, ways out and trying to give them the benefit of the doubt when we know what they think about us. We see it all the time. So for me, I want to know, well, first of all, I have to say, even killers, people who have committed murder have the right to face their accuser. So I don't want to hear this. We may never hear the interview or see it take. If you gonna come out anonymously and say that was the worst formal interview you've ever done, show me the money. Otherwise, I don't know if you're just lying to hurt this boy because you're a racist. There are ways to shut all of this down. You send us the video, you post that video to shut everybody up. Show us that he came in there and acted a monkey with you. Came in there acting like a whole donkey with you. And then we got to go, oh, well, damn, son, you were tripping. But until then, I don't want to hear about what Dion did. That doesn't have anything to do with this. I don't want to hear about what they did to any other player because only he matters, because that's what we're talking about. Now, let me ask a question about Caleb Williams. If they knew outright he was, tripping, and they took a risk on him, two questions. One, did they start talking about his interviews were terrible and giving all this crap about Caleb Williams, or did they admit that they ignored all of that crap and made a bad decision? And when it comes to Caleb, was he better than Shaddeur?
I mean, we don't know who's better than who. Shador hasn't played a snap of NFL football. Caleb Williams had a very prominent college career at one of the most, storied college football franchises. I think his draft stock might have gone up in the interviews because the personality he had showed on the field and the crying and the pre-draft interviews where he was demanding ownership if he got drafted. I think he got in the room with coaches and impressed them. And
And then
and
went
then
crazy.
he didn't have the season that Jaden Daniels had as the number 2 pick, but we're not calling Caleb Williams a bust yet. But he was a controversial. He was a pick that had red flags, and then he went into the combine and the interviews and was able to defeat those things, which is the opposite of what happened here. And I just want to say this again: this is a job interview, and if we're all acting like we've never gone to a job interview and presented ourselves not as our authentic everyday talking to my friend's self, but we changed our voice. We wore clothes we don't wear any other fucking time. We may have taken a class about how to answer some of these questions because we went someplace hoping to get an opportunity, trying to get picked. It just is what it is, and we've all done it, and we all understand it. And all of a sudden now we're like, nah, this is one of them situations where you was just supposed to throw your way into the NFL. It don't. It's never worked that way.
It's
Never,
never. No,
never,
it's never.
never. It's always
So
about. It's not all. It's never been all about the football. They are drafting a person and they are going to put millions into you. They maybe want you to be the face of the franchise, somebody that can be on billboards and do commercials and do all this other stuff. Like it's never been just about football.
I just want to know what he did so egregious. You anything that you've said, I don't. I want so desperately to see these interviews because if you telling me because he likes to make music, and because he thinks he's great, that is an egregious enough act to drop him from a first round pick. I mean, not first round pick, but the top five, or at least being picked in the first round to 144, and all of the bad stuff that people have been saying. He needs to be humble. That boy, this, that. We know what boy means. We know what boy means. You can look at the comment on social media of the fans, the people, the regular people, and the disgusting way non-melanated people talked about him. You know, him and his daddy. This, I mean, I saw really horrible racist things said by these people. You
By
know, the
fans.
the NFL will never let us down. Just like Kaepernick, they put that N word in his place, hard ER.
Right.
So it's not even black people feeling like this. White people are also commending the NFL because they think racism played a part of it too. And it's just, I think it's one of these things. Well, we'll never, and I fully believe in my heart racism played a part in it. You fully believe that it didn't. We will never know, and we definitely won't know if they won't release these horrible interviews that he supposedly did. And I just I just don't want our boys to be told you can't like rap music. You can't do more than one thing. You can't be confident. You can't be assured of yourself. And, nobody else gets told that. I just want to make sure that that's not happening.
But let's be real about that. Look at the NFL and look how many players are making music. Look how many players show up in their jewelry and in the NFL now, are doing are whatever they want to do. I'm not saying whatever they want to do, but they are themselves. They're doing multiple things. They're doing, you know, they're doing all of this. They showed up for the job interview like they were trying to get the job though.
They
Like
start doing it
we're
after
not
they got the
saying,
job.
yeah, after, and all of us have done it. Every
Yeah.
person listening to this show right now has showed up for a job interview as a person that they thought the other people wanted to hire, not necessarily 100% who you are.
Oh, they are. Yeah. 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 I will
So
agree
we
with that.
understand that, and so my issue, and I'll leave it at this. My issue with this, and why it's bothering me so, is because right now the Trump administration has set the precedent that if I can pick and choose any one of you, get you out of here, admit it was a mistake after the fact, allow for no due process, and you're gone. And if you think
He's
it's
talking about
just,
deportation.
I'm talking about deportation. I mean, if you think it's just, my mom said something to me interesting the other day. She saw this quote from, I think it was like a farmer or something, and he was saying like when it happened, I'm getting the ethnicities mixed up, but the point is the same. Like he's like, when it happened to the blacks, I didn't do anything. When it happened to the Hispanics, I didn't do anything. When it happened to me, there was nobody left to fight. If you think it stops here, they can do this indiscriminately. They are trying to get rid of due process. They're trying to get rid of having to put you what you're asking for now. They're trying to get rid of that. They're trying to get rid of you having to show the evidence or allow me to be convicted by a jury of my peers or a right to a fair trial. If he can get you up out of here, say it was a mistake after the fact, and not have to do anything about like you're just gone.
Well, let me add another a point to what he's talking about again when he's talking about deportation because I don't know that the Trump administration ever admitted that it was a mistake. What I will say is they all of a sudden invented a story that the man was in a gang. And I think that the reason they came out with that story was to not have to say they made a mistake and to not have to go back to El Salvador and get this man. I'm not really sure what that has to do with the Shaddeur story. That is something else that we do need to be paying attention to. As a matter of fact, that story is way more important than the Shaddeur story. And we can even put together a show where we're talking about some of the things that's going on now, from AI to the deportation stuff and all of that. But just to end on the Shaddeur note, I think tensions are high, emotions are high. I think Black people are tired of being held to a different standard. I think that we are tired of being used and run through the just dirt and the mud in the media and being again, we have to be 600,000 times better than everybody else, and they still come down on us the first time we blink too many times in a second, versus other people doing way more egregious things, and it's, oh, they're just a kid, they're figuring themselves out. So even if we're wrong on this part, even if everybody who said this feels racist and vice versa on those other things, we're completely wrong, can you blame us? It's so much stuff going on at this point. A lot of racism. You talking about deportation, possibly moving over to us, and we are American citizens. Yeah, we gonna be a little sensitive.
And so my thing, at the end of the day, this boy went from making what 50 million to 20 million. He got
That's
drafted.
terrible.
He got drafted. He
But that's a
just
$30 million loss.
I want to lose 30 million and still get half 20.
I
Sign
don't
me
want to
up.
want to keep
Sign
my
me
50
up to
and my
be Shaddeur Sanders right now. I will cry at the draft in front of everybody if it makes them feel better. Whatever you need, sign me the fuck up to be Shaddeur Sanders. I'll take it. I will take it, and
you make
I know I haven't put in the work that he's put in his whole life to be here. If I got to work
man,
twice as
keep on saying
hard
that.
from now on forward to get it, I'll do it. But again,
$30 million is a lot to lose. You would not, you're just saying it because you don't have 10 million. But if you had 50 and dropped to 20, that is a huge
and
loss.
so knowing that, you show up for the interview. You show up like you're interviewing for a job. If that 30 million meant something to you, then you show up like it means something to you. And if that means that in this interview, I might not should say this thing that I would normally say, or I need to show a little more humility in this situation, or as a dad, maybe I just need to step back for a second, let this process go through, and get this cool 30 mil, and then I can do whatever the fuck I want to. I think most of us would have made that decision. And again, people fall in the draft every year for various reasons. You end up with teams. I think that the Aaron Rodgers uncertainty played a factor in this. People are trying to figure out where he's going to land. And so there were teams that may want him that are waiting on that.
Ain't Aaron Rodgers 75,000 years old?
Yeah, and Aaron Rodgers has proven himself as an NFL quarterback.
Or why he
And
ain't got no job? Why is he in the draft?
he's not in the draft. He's a
Or why,
free
I mean,
agent.
why is he available to be drafted or put on the team if he's so great?
There are teams that want to go with a younger back. There are teams that want to go with a younger quarterback. There are teams that don't want to deal with the bullshit that comes along with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is the guy to be doing the ayahuasca and all that shit and all that extra hippie stuff. There are teams that don't want to deal with that. He was the one, the anti-vaxxer who didn't want to get the vaccinations and couldn't play certain games. So this is another. Here's an example of a white person that has his personality, whose personality has superseded his talent. And now, as talented as he is, he's struggling. He's
Is he
struggling to
still
find work.
talented at that
Yes, he's
age?
still talented at that age.
How old is he for real? Is he in his 40s?
I don't know. He can still throw the football. There's a lot of teams that would take him. He's not. They're not.
You
I
know,
don't think there are 31 quarterbacks better than him in the NFL right now. He
I
might
just
not be the
want to
best.
say, I just want to say that shout out to all the people who did not get that dangerous, crazy vaccine. Keep yourself protected. All right.
Again, there are teams that don't want to deal with that, and so that's where he's struggling right now. It's not
Well, I
always about
hope,
the football. It's not ever about
I
just about the
hope,
football.
I hope that the teams see that we're tired And I hope that somebody looks at this and goes, if it really wasn't racism when involved, I would never be convinced that it wasn't. But if racism wasn't involved, I hope they look and go, look at what the American people think of us. Look how deplorable they find us. Look at what our fan base was saying. Our fan base was commending us for doing something we wasn't even trying to do. We got to fix this. It's not okay. Something is wrong. The fact that it does feel like the slave block. You're going to put these boys up here, weigh them, make them go say jump, they say how high, and all this other foolishness. But the only difference between that and slavery is that you're actually paying them. It all looks bad, so change it. When your team comes up for sale, somebody do something and say, we need 32 teams and not one black owner. Okay, your little presidents and your little whatever else, your GMs, all that stuff, but no owner. It's like the old boys club. And you're not gonna let nobody melanated in. And I would have loved it. Like somebody mentioned, have The Rock come out and call Dion and have Shaddeur go over there. You know what I'm saying? I want us to be where we're wanted, not when we're used and, we go out here and we harm our bodies and make ourselves much older, much faster to make them filthy rich. And then as soon as something go wrong, they want to throw us away. It's barbaric. I hate football. It's so
I just
barbaric. But I honestly just want everybody to be treated fairly. If you see red flags for what Shadur did, then I better see you treat every other person who does the same thing the same. Let's just make it an even playing field, please.
and I don't think this was a case of unfairness. And my hope is that this isn't the hill we choose to die on. I don't. He is a professional quarterback, and I like what he's doing. A couple things that I didn't mention already. He also did not. Neither one of his sons had an agent. Dion was serving as his agent. I'm sure that played into it. The NFL tried to send a message to Lamar Jackson when his mother was trying to be his agent. And one of the first things Shiloh did when he didn't get drafted and he saw what was happening with Shaddeur and he got picked up, I think by Tampa Bay, was he hired an agent. So again, I'm sure that played into it. There could be some racism there. There could be some we don't like Dion there. And there's teams that I'm telling if you own the organization and somebody's dad 20 years ago came into your organization and said, fuck you and walked out. When their son showed up 20 years later, you might not, unless they was a talent that you was like, man, we got to have this kid. You might be like, nah, no, go hug your daddy. We don't want to talk to you. But they gave him an interview.
But do you
They
think
gave
that's
him
the
an
best
interview.
right
And
behavior?
that's,
Is that
and
fair?
yes, it happens all the time. Okay, so let me give you a story.
Is it
Okay, hold
fair
on,
for
hold
you
on.
to judge a kid based off their dad?
Let me give you a story. Let me give you a story.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of the guy's name. His name was Kenny, so not Kenny Smith, but this was another player at North Carolina. Before he got to North Carolina, he was the high. He had the scoring title or like the scoring records in Virginia. This guy could score the basketball. That's how he got to where he was. He got to North Carolina playing for Dean Smith, a legendary college coach. And Dean Smith, he's a point guard. Dean Smith says, I got 5 All-Americans here. I need you to distribute the ball. I don't need you to score. He didn't like that. He couldn't wrap his mind around it. He left. He went to, I think, VCU or something like that. Years go by. He ends up in a camp for the Chicago Bulls. We know who was playing for the Chicago Bulls at the time, Michael Jordan, a UNC alum. He said Michael Jordan would stop him at the end of every day and make him play one-on-one with him every day after practice to try to, I guess, prove himself. And on the last day of cuts, Michael Jordan said, if you had stayed at UNC, you'd be on the roster. It had like so he paid. He did not get an opportunity to be on a professional team denied by a black man because of something he did in college, because of the decision he made. He didn't like where he was in college. Mike said, if you had stayed at UNC, you'd be on the team right now. We know Michael Jordan was the reason that Isaiah Thomas wasn't on the dream team. Yes, this stuff happens. And all the time. It's never just about the talent or the basketball or the football or any of that. Will Smith just did a Drink Champs episode, and he talks about leaving for his first tour. And the last piece of advice his grandmother gave him was go everywhere like you're going to have to go back someday. Yes, the sins of the father, Yes, your red flags. Yes, the things you do on social media follow you. Ask the white people who've been arrested or not arrested or been fired because they did some racist shit on the internet. Like the
Oh
stuff
yeah, Black
follows
Twitter
you.
will
It,
ruin
it,
your whole entire life.
it don't matter how great of an accountant they were. Their skill wasn't worth their personality. It happens all the time. Show up for the job interview.
I love that. And I'm gonna go ahead because we need to close this out because baby, we at 45 minutes. I think you have to use that as the title. This has to be called Show Up for the Interview. And I already got like four different reels in my head. This was interesting. I can appreciate the fact that we can have a productive conversation and not disagree. I mean, and not agree all the time. See things from two totally different perspectives. Giving people their choice. You know, which I'd be curious for you guys listening. Which one of us do you agree with? Did you come in feeling more like me and Flan was able to sway you? Did you come in thinking like him and I swayed you? Or did you come in like however you came in and you still feel exactly that way? Either way, everybody got to hear something different. We got the football IQ, the logic from the male, we got the passionate opinions and emotions of the woman, and we will never know exactly all of what happened. And I just don't want to live in a world where people of color keep being done wrong and the standards and the rules and the regulations are always changing for us. I can hope all day long that that wasn't this. And if Shaddeur is gonna have to face the sins of his father, pay for the sins of his father, hey yo, that's not fair. That's not fair. But I could also understand why there's bad blood and why they would use their money to attack that boy. You said what?
We ask white people to pay for the sins of their fathers all the time.
That's because they still doing the same stuff their fathers were doing. But I do want to go ahead and wrap this up, and I'll say this: make sure that you're good to yourself, and make sure that you're kind to others. And until next week, holla.
Go support Harvard. Go check out the deportation issue. Far bigger fish to fry. This is inconsequential.